This podcast is brought to you by Australia's LGBTQIA+ community media organisation, Joy. Keep Joy on air by becoming a member, a subscriber or donate. Head to joy.org.au. Joy, a diverse sound for a diverse community.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and Aboriginal people who are listening. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded.
Welcome to Still Here, Still Queer, the show that celebrates the fierce, funny and fabulous lives of our rainbow elders. Each week we share stories, music and conversations that honour our rich history, challenge ageism and spark connection across generations. Whether you're a proud elder, a curious ally or just here for the glitter and wisdom, welcome. We're still here, still queer, and we're not going anywhere.
Hell no, we've just arrived. We're certainly not going anywhere
and
yet.
Reaching our peak, Adrian.
Welcome to Still Here, Still Queer. Gillian with you here, Joss on the panel.
Hello.
This is your first time, isn't it?
First time as a co-presenter. Yeah, I have been a guest.
Yes, but first time behind the controls there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm very happy
button pushing now
that your fingers are on the button. And in the studio with us, well, I have to say, Rowena, you're already a veteran. You were here last week.
I know. I feel like I know the place, but I am sitting in a different seat, so that gives me a completely different perspective, Gillian.
Well, very good. Now, you're from Gay and Lesbian Switchboard, but from a particular program that we're, well, particularly on this show, we're very happy about.
And I think you're showing your age there by referring to it as a Gay and Lesbian Switchboard.
Oh, what is it now?
Just Switchboard, Victoria.
Okay.
Right, okay.
I thought there was no age shaming on this show.
It started early.
Right.
Joss.
Well, I think I'm just like a bit fangirling over Gillian because Gillian, you know, has been around the scene for a long time.
See, more age shaming.
No, it's I was that age to show that, but you know, I feel like it. Yes, in a good way.
Thanks,
and
Rowena.
it just feels like, you know, being in the presence of someone as, you know, as experienced, knowledgeable, you know, dynamic. I feel like you're a little bit of an idol to me for the last, you know, time of like 20, 30 years in the community.
Well, thank you.
So I don't know how that's bad because I was basically saying I'm fangirling here tonight.
No,
right?
well,
so,
thank you. And thank you for explaining it. I've probably gone a shade of puce. But you're not here on your own. Daniel, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
Little bit closer to the microphone.
Okay,
Don't be afraid of it. What is your position in this whole Pride of Aging program? What do you do?
So I've been brought on as one of the regional coordinators, and I think you heard from Merrin, who's one of our other coordinators last week. And so I look after the Gippsland Region as one of the coordinators for Pride in Aging, and that was the pilot area where we started. And so, yeah, work with Pride in Aging and Switchboard and with Rowena.
Oh. So how long have you been flying planes for?
The pilot she's referring to.
Yes, he's also called our lead guinea pig, but that's another story we probably shouldn't have said on air. To maybe, like, I think you're going to go, what? Let's find out what happened in part one.
On Pride of Aging.
Pride in Aging is a multi-year, multi-regional project where we are getting to understand what does it take to live a safe, connected and authentic life in regional and rural Victoria. Now, the beauty of that is that we don't have a lot of data apart from like the ABS and 10%. This is a real opportunity to find out what are the gaps, what can we do, identify that. And part of that, how do we do that? Learning lessons from the last 20 years of whether it be government or even community doing projects like this, the importance of having place-based workers. So the project is about it. We've got 4 place-based workers. We've got Daniel out in Gippsland. We've got Natalie up in Wodonga. We've got Jen out in Warrnambool, and we've got Merrin, who was here last week, doing the Golden Plains area. So it's about really centering older people.
Great. And I've arrived just at the right time. Brilliant.
it is also about what can we do from that capacity building for the organisations, because in reality it's not like we're going to have an office switchboard in these places. So we're going to be working with that ecosystem that
already exists.
Yes, exactly, and make sure a lot of older people talk about, I know go here for my LGBTI stuff, but I'll go here for my age services stuff. But there's a big gap in between. So we're trying to help understand what that gap is. What can we do? What levers do we have?
Yes.
But even if we don't have the levers, whether it be in Victoria or Switchboard, how can we help advocate to those people who do have those levers to help bring it together? Because people want to live
so
where they are.
You're rainbowing up the regions in the kind of ageing space, basically. It's
Absolutely. We're setting again the conversation and, like your motto here, that, they're still there, we're still here, still queer. And it's really centering them, which has just done a lot of healing as well for people, just to be knowing that
to be seen.
Yes. Exactly.
Seems quite simple, but it's so important, isn't it?
Yes, and it's so
because it is almost like when when you get older, the queer, whether you sort of almost go back in the closet a little bit, because fine when you've got your safety in numbers out partying, but as you get older, you don't sort of see yourself represented so much. Is that what you're finding, Daniel, out there?
And that comes up all the time. And I think people are just happy also to know that there's a pilot program that's happening that's in the regions and focused on older LGBTI people, and maybe a bit of a sentiment that it's overdue as well, like they've been waiting for it. And so that feels like it's something really good to be a part of.
What is, would there be one primary issue, do you think? They're like, oh, thank goodness you're here because I can't get a good coffee. Something that is almost as basic as that.
Well, what we've heard since the beginning of this project, and that's even before we had the regional coordinators, Daniel Whithouse and myself from Rural Pride Australia, went out and talked to community about where should we put these workers, because everyone would like to have someone there. So we did a lot of talking to community around that, first of all, and a lot of it was also these are where resources often usually go. People wanted to, so we wanted to, because we're documenting this with a really robust evaluation, we really also wanted to show all the difference, because no one model or no one size fits all regional and rural people. So in that conversation from the beginning, and it's carried on with the work the regional coordinator's doing, social connection. Right. Number one is social connection.
And that benefit of being able to listen to people straight away. When I started in the role, I was able to say why my role is primarily focused in East Gippsland, which is where we know most isolation exists for people. And
is that because of what it is geographically? Places a long way apart?
I think there's a lot to it. That was certainly one of them. But the other thing that we heard loud and clear, and I was able to reinforce this back to people, is we heard that no one ever comes east of Sale. And for anyone who lives in East Gippsland, they totally get this. So there'd be Melbourne-based organisations doing outreach or coming out to do maybe a 12-month project. They would come to the middle of Gippsland, because Gippsland's a big place for a lot of people who haven't been there, 40,000 square kilometres. For our area, it takes in 6 different shires. And so, but they would come in and go that far and say, well, everyone can come to us in the middle where we're here.
Right, which sort of isn't the point, is it?
No, and it doesn't fly.
Outreach.
Yeah, it's a way of flagging that you're not from the regions when you do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. We found that with all the locations, and I think Jen out in Mournival, they talk about the Ring of Steel. Dan Andrews might have popularised that phrase, but it is true that people feel like a lot of organisations, and it is not just queer organisations, it's, do not go past certain points. So it's really been valuable for us to go past those points.
And maybe I'll even mention it as a worker, and not just because my manager's sitting beside me either, but all of that work.
He's passed his annual review, everyone. It's okay.
Done.
Well done.
The pilot's over. No. So what was really good, I've lost my train of thought.
Oh, no. That's your manager.
I was going to say how amazing once again.
The work that was done early on to create that ecosystem for a place-based worker to be, because we've had a lot of LGBT orgs send people into the regions, but maybe not embedded in other organisations, or not having that structure of support around them.
Yes.
And so we've got really good partners like Gippsland Pride, the main charity in the area. But we've also got Gippsland Lakes Complete Health, which is where I base myself, working in the aged care and community spaces that they have. So as a worker, that's really beneficial to me, but also the work that I can do, and people are asking me questions, and I've got all of these resources around me at a really queer-friendly organisation. And also community told us that was a safe space for them. So it's not just on our say-so, it's what people said to us.
Still here, still queer, rainbowing out the wrinkles. You're listening to Still Here, Still Queer with Joss and Gillian and our fabulous guests, Rowena and Daniel from Pride in Ageing. Now, before we get into any more discussion, I want to invite you listeners, if you've got questions or experiences out in the regions, we want to hear about it. 0427 569 949, or you can ping us an email on onair@joy.org.au. Joss, you had a question, I believe.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of Indigenous groups out in the regions, because as colonists we've kind of pushed them from the city. What interactions do you have, and what sort of special needs have you discovered for ageing Indigenous populations in your regions?
So thanks for that. And that's why I chose that song, because we're absolutely guided, first of all, by First Nations and 65,000 years of respecting older people. We're very, very lucky, and the value of storytelling and where they are placed in communities. So that's something that we absolutely really want to honour throughout this whole project. Very early on, though, talking to some of the queer people, queer rainbow mob out in the regions is, well, it's certainly building up the trust. Doesn't matter if Switchboard or anything like that, because, they've been telling us what they've wanted for 280 odd years and nobody's listened. So, and that is absolutely fair enough. But also too, we heard really strongly that they kind of want to do their own thing, you know what I mean? And have their own conversations. And, we're just really respecting what, those communities, and they're all different, because also too, there is still some of those communities that there is shame about being rainbow mob. We're very lucky. We've got Peter Wapples Crow, who is on our expert advisory committee. And so for us, it's about trying to support them to be doing their own kind of conversations, not for us coming in. So that's it's an ongoing, and it's a process that
they can approach you, which is a good thing.
Absolutely. And we are going out to them and people who are that we know, and letting them lead the way. And Switchboard have just got a new First Nations lead, Jean, who's just come on board, and we're going to work closely with her in relation to this. But when it comes to certainly First Nations, it is a priority group for this, but it is not a group that we can, like you said, put on white colonialistic kind of approaches.
Come on, we're going to come in and help you now.
Come together, right, and tell us what we can do, So it is a very, very different approach, and, one that we are continually trying to honour just 65,000 years of how you respect elders and the role that they play in community and the storytelling that they have, and honouring that.
Have you learnt much from these conversations about the way you conduct the Pride in Ageing program?
Absolutely. And I think it is about questioning ourselves continually about, is this a colonialistic approach in the sense of the questions or what we're doing? Absolutely. We just had a 2-day planning day, and we were continually questioning ourselves and each other about learning, which is not only just for this project. I think it's broader as how we interact as people.
Well, I was about to say the same thing, is that, I get the colonial thing, particularly when we're talking about First Nations people, but in any agency where you're helping people, you've got to know how to help people and to listen to them. You don't just come in and say, right, we're going to sort you out. It's like, well, A, I didn't ask you, and B, that, what you're offering is not what I need.
Absolutely, because it is co-design. And co-design certainly means different things to different people in some regard, but also to people who are very trained in that kind of health system or government of, really, I just want you to give me information to get to this one point, right? So in this co-design, we're continually talking, checking, making sure we've heard correctly, going back with what we're going. We've taken left turns, right turns, down the loops.
It'd be pivot city, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And that, look, it can it can be uncomfortable, but we've got to continually challenge ourselves as workers to go, it can feel like you're not doing the work, but we are doing the work because it's talking to the people, and we're documenting that for government. And, first year was lessons about we need to be multi-year, right? Any programs
How many
like this.
years do you have?
4 years. So we've got another 2 years left.
Great.
Because you're not going to build up that trust.
No.
You know, like I said, when we went out to Malakuta, it's like, well, everyone comes for 12 months. And the first 6 months is like, are you even for real?
Yeah.
And I always tell the story of Tina Healy when they were setting up Alphabet Soup. This is going back 2015, 2016. Sorry if I get it wrong, Tina. Was, you know, used to come and sit in a cafe, Alphabet Cafe, and, you know, would say, I'm going to come there and, you know, doing any peer support, absolutely out of their own time and energy.
Yeah.
And it was 6 months before anybody started to come,
Right.
right? But it was being consistent and always being there, right?
Right.
And then building up. And at one point in time, Alphabet Soup grew so big, it was, you know, 2 big, you know, working groups happening.
Yeah.
And that's
So
part of that, you know, being consistent, being there. And so that having a multi-year project is incredibly lucky. We want to honour that. But we're also looking at what are the models that we can document, right? So things that we might go, oh, duh, but nobody's documented them. No one said this is how to do it. No one can push back to not only government, but to all the, you know, community health organisations.
Yeah.
And what I feel very, very fortunate about is that we actually have a government, state government, who's listening and wants to listen.
Right.
And that's, you know, that is huge because it may not be the same after November because they are listening about, you know, it's an education for them as well.
Of course.
So even things like, you know, we're how we're going to bring the older people together. We're doing a collective action framework built on how we...
what?
Well, just think about what we did through the HIV/AIDS epidemic, right? We were changing some of those systems that had existed before, and you can't do that, whether it be phone trees or going to, you know, like really like getting in there and helping and doing smaller groups, you know, action rather than feeling we had to have a hierarchy. You're the president, you're the, you know, this, you're that. Here are our terms of reference.
Yes.
It's like, what are our agreed values? What are our agreed approaches, right?
Yes.
So, you know, and yes, it's you know, these are the sorts of things, if we don't keep repeating and educating and sharing, but all of this really does come back to First Nations approaches and values.
Right. Okay. Well, Daniel, you're on the ground out there in the regions. You know, what have been some of your experiences that have made you go, wow, I didn't know that, and that's something we can really take on board?
And there's a lot of learning experiences, and that's a really good way to frame it as well. And there's been so many nice stories, and some of them really deep, and some of them maybe just more funny and lighthearted as well. But I'm just thinking of one example. I was at Switchboard the other day and raided our stationery cupboard because somebody at one point had asked me for a rainbow lanyard, which sounded like a really simple request. And so I thought I'd take a few out there.
I do like the look of them, actually. They look very nice.
And it was only within 2 days that somebody had a rainbow belt. I commented on it. They said, I've been after one of these rainbow lanyards, and was able to give it to them. Again, a really simple gesture, but for them, it was actually really important because they're so proud that they want to wear it. And so, yeah, it didn't cost us much, but so now I've got
it was
to put in
worth a
big
lot to
order
them.
for, yes. Yep.
So rainbow lanyards are incoming.
Yep.
Other rainbow bits too, I think. There is a you know, a real demand for that. But I think the other thing is to not think that everyone thinks that a rainbow flag is going to fix their problems or be their solution out in the regions as well.
But I do think that example of yours, Daniel, is that you never know where information is going to come from or what it's going to consist of.
And this keeps on coming up. There's an 80-year-old gentleman who's recently come out for the first time in his 80s, and he also was visiting a service and asked to have their rainbow flag. He placed it in his living room. His wife is now living with dementia that he visits very regularly, and had somebody come to the home to help him with home duties, and they commented on the rainbow flag, and he was able to talk about his own identity, and actually the person that was helping was a young trans man, and they had this beautiful exchange and conversation, and he reflected to me, that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have had that rainbow flag there, because I wouldn't have brought it up, and I don't think they would have asked me. And so they're also just some little power, but for them, and they've now since moved into a nursing home where their wife lives as well, and they've been able to let people know about their identity as being a gay man and proudly having that in their room, which is now their house.
That's fabulous, because we hear so many, I've heard a lot of stories about, as we mentioned right at the top of the show, being forced back into the closet, particularly when you go into an aged care home or something like that. So how are you able to support queer ageing people to maintain their queer identity in these sorts of very medicalised settings.
And I think we're very much being led by them. And so in this sense, there was no intervention necessary at all. We were hearing the good news story, but being there, I suppose, to be able to offer advice, support. And also one of the things I think we do is connect people to other organisations that we know of, and we can be that resource as well. And there's probably a lot of work that needs to happen in aged care as well, but we're not there to solve it.
You're listening to Still Here, Still Queer, where Rainbow Elders rule.
You're listening to Still Here, Still Queer on Joy, and we're still here, and we're still queer, Joss.
Haven't left yet.
No. And I'm Gillian. We're here with Rowena and Daniel from Pride in Ageing. Thank you so much for coming in to see us. I think that, the work you're doing is amazing. Now, Daniel, you've told us some of the perhaps the lighter side of people coveting rainbow flags or lanyards or braces. I'm just imagining they want braces. I always wanted rainbow braces.
Oh, get you some, Gillian. I have a source.
I don't know that I want them now. 30 years ago would have been good. Thanks, Rowena. But Daniel, obviously there is also a very serious side. What are some of the more serious questions or complaints that you've come across?
And I think before getting to that, one of the things I'll mention is we're very beneficial to have the support of Gippsland Pride as a partner in the region, and they're very much a trusted source.
Do they have funding?
So I'm sure they'd like more. And this is the beauty, is that we can uplift some of the things that they're already doing. And one of the great initiatives they have before we were in the region is Forever Rainbows. And so that's an over 50 social group that was started by Gippsland Pride.
Don't mind that. Forever Rainbows.
And it has taken off in a big way. So started in Trafalgar, where they have their Pride Hub, and then they've been able to expand that with Pride in Ageing. So now I help facilitate that in East Gippsland in Bairnsdale. And so we're able to run that in 2 locations, and we've been doing some really great stuff. And the community are telling us they want to be able to come together, so we've organised joint events for them to come together as part of that Forever Rainbows collective. But I think the reason I mention that is when you have this monthly get together, you can then start to build the trust, and people feel comfortable to talk to you. I'm also benefiting from the experience having worked as the first regional worker for Gippsland Pride as well. So already had some rapport with some of the community members. But I think what I was probably astounded with, I thought it would take longer for topics around suicide to come up when speaking with older people.
Right.
And I was quite surprised that it was really quite front of mind for people.
Okay.
And they were speaking with it almost like it was still with them, still present, still front of mind. And they were talking about suicide, which was really from their youth, which maybe led them to come out, led them to contact organisations like Switchboard in the day when it was the Gay and Lesbian Switchboard, and to be able to be connected within the community as well. So hearing those stories, we were able to put together some initiatives around. Switchboard obviously has a lot of credentials in suicide prevention. And so we put some workshops together, and it was kind of twofold in the sense that we're able to do some intergenerational work and bringing young people together as well, where obviously there's a suicide focus in the regions, but being able to bring them together. And we had a lot of older people starting to maybe process and think about that suicidality that was there for them many years ago.
Right. And so to be clear for me, to make sure that I'm clear, and hopefully I'm not just an idiot, and maybe our listeners are wondering too. So you're saying that it sort of just remained an issue because of their experience when they were younger, or are they feeling suicidal now? Is there...
Well, I mean, that can certainly happen. But in these examples that I'm mentioning, no, it was actually just us having conversations about community topics that are kind of current.
Right.
And when we're talking about youth, it kind of brought up, I suppose, their feelings of what
So
happened
they're
a long
still
time
traumatised and haven't dealt with the grief or confusion of stuff that happened 40 years ago, maybe.
And also when it wasn't common to go and seek assistance for that, or there wasn't so many safe spaces that you could go to.
And I think to remember, a lot of these people have lived through the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So it's that kind of, dealing with what happened there and the loss of so many lives, but also to the conversations around their own end of life.
Yes.
As well, for people who may not be as connected to families and, what to do. So absolutely, I think there's this bit of healing and, dealing with trauma, but there is a real sense of wanting to make sure the next generation is not having to go through some of the things that they went through.
Right. Okay. Well, because, you mentioned the end of life thing there as well, because obviously that becomes a discussion, doesn't it? Particularly, with your own agency around that, or your partner and the rules. So has that come up as well?
Certainly for me.
While we're talking about death.
I know this woman had come in and said, I'm just really here. I want to know how to kill myself.
Yeah.
80-something. It's like that. I just want that control. I want that agency.
Yes, we can put it aside over there until I need it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was high.
Yeah.
And maybe in a different way, I've also heard it with some of the people I've been talking about who are in a relationship. Maybe one is caring for the other, and they don't have a network around them. They don't have their own family. They're not connected with other people. And I heard one community member I was speaking with talking about the idea of having their much younger partner having to look after them because of their condition, and worried. And they were really honest in saying, I don't know what I would do if he wasn't here. And it was all said in jest over coffee,
right.
But it sits, you can tell it sits there with them because they don't have any other support network around them, and they're very reliant on their partner. And in that sense, that idea of what if, and this almost candid joke around the idea of I have to go first. It can't be my partner who goes first. Yeah.
Wow.
And that sat with me for a long time after that conversation.
Yeah, that would be. Obviously, that's a concern in straight relationships, of course. But as you're saying, without the network that we have, there are fewer other resources, or we think that there are.
And that comes back to the first thing I said about social connection. I think that's expanding those supports. But one of the great things that came for this Pride and Ageing funding, our Out and About community visitor program is now able to expand. Previously, you had to be on an aged care package,
right,
which a lot of our community don't necessarily want to be on. They don't identify like this. But now we can expand our community visitor program to hopefully help with some of those supports that can help people know their wishes, or someone's going to check in on them, a day or two. And, I was fortunate to be around when there was some, sudden deaths and people didn't know what to do. Do we go into people's places and things like that? And I remember Heather Birch, who sits on our expert advisory committee, at someone's funeral and going, we need to be able to have that, safe places that someone can go and check on them, and someone knows that someone's going to check on them. And I think that's really relevant here, particularly regional, rural, which may not have that same, I'm getting my coffee from every day or something like that you might, get here. I think it's just so really important that we've been able to, thanks to the government, to expand that Out and About community visitor program.
And is that part of Pride in Ageing, or is that?
Yes. So previously, like I said, there's funding from the federals, and so we were doing that based on you had to have an aged care package.
Yes.
Now you don't have to have an aged care package, which is incredibly liberating.
Yes, but because I'm trying to, in a way, get my head around, your remit and your scope. Are you there really, in a way, in this 4 years is about learning stuff and maybe finding out what people want to hopefully bring in maybe new laws or new resources?
So I will sum it up and say we've got three initiatives. One is that we got to centre older peoples to hear from them, and that's the filling the gaps, understanding what, the community needs to be safe, connected and authentic. The second initiative is around building the capacity of the organisations based on what we're hearing from them. And that is, obviously we can, like I said, the levers of government in a state or local, but also too providing the data for those other organisations who might deal with federal issues. And the third initiative is the expansion of the Out and About community visitor program, but it talks about more also too about an intergenerational friendship network. And that's the other thing we've heard is a lot of absolutely some people like someone to have that community visitor, but we're really hearing a lot more that people actually, they want that intergenerational connection. They want to be just joining in and helping, not to be, teaching them the ways or whatever.
Yeah.
That they just
interacting, feeling part of something.
Yes, exactly. And
when I think of my, my sons that are nearly 20, what I learn from them, it isn't about you teaching them necessarily. No. They think they know everything anyway, so
yes, I've heard them on the radio. They do.
But it's about healing, because I think too sometimes we can be so deep in the weeds that we forget how far we have come on some things.
Yes.
And it's really good, or what we have survived. And when we think about some of the attacks on trans and gender diverse community now, it is out of the playbook of the attacks on gays and lesbians. You know what I mean? And absolutely there's differences, but we can also share that how we got through. So it is a bit of a good perspective, and that's also to not just for the younger people, but for the older people to go, hey,
look, we did that. We did that. The resilience.
Yes, absolutely. Because we can get stuck about how things, down and go, oh, it's terrible here. But we don't step back enough to go, my God, our community is fabulous. Not only, from our but from how we do come together, how we push boundaries, whether it be, in the HIV, we were the community nurses were the ones really changing.
Yes, there was nothing there.
Absolutely. We are continually pushing the boundaries, but we don't often celebrate that. We don't have enough joy.
We don't. We don't dance enough.
Still here, still queer. We'll tell you what to do.
We're proud to be still here, still queer, aren't we, Joss?
We absolutely are. Now, we were talking about some quite heavy subjects before, thoughts about end of life, which happens in ageing, and suicidality and trauma and all that kind of thing. If anything that we've talked about in this show has got you a bit on edge or you need some support, if you go to the Joy website, joy.org.au/support, we've got a whole list of fabulous support services there that can help you out. One of those is, of course, Switchboard. And we have our wonderful guests, Rowena and Daniel from Switchboard, who are talking to us about the Pride in Ageing program in regional Victoria, and the kind of the networking and services, networking with other services, and the kind of supports that are needed and are necessary.
Well, I think what I was going to mention is, as I've been getting to know a lot of the people in the region and kind of asking them about their career and what they did and what they've done within community, and actually finding out how many great things were happening across Gippsland in the 90s, in the 2000s. Obviously in a really different time, no Gippsland Pride there, the whole sector was really different, I suppose, and even language, but just how, I suppose, out of necessity, there was just so many great things happening to bring queer people together, and I've been able to meet the people who were responsible for them. And so through these conversations, we've been talking about what we might be able to revive, rename, and kind of bring back, and people bringing back those initiatives at a different time in their life, but with maybe a different focus.
Reinvigorating, as you're saying.
And they're talking about it. And what's interesting is kind of thinking about the themes, people, this idea of history, I think, and looking back, but you're right, it's reinvigorating and people wanting to share those stories.
Because you wear yourself out a bit, don't you, sometimes? Everybody needs to be re-inspired.
Yeah, and in those times, a lot of the events would have been grassroots organised from just the people that were there, not with any organisational support. So it's great that you can sort of bring that to them now. And
very much so. And even just the other day in conversation in South Gippsland, having a conversation with a group, and I asked them, how long has your dinner network actually been going for? Because it's dinner network.
I certainly heard that.
Okay. And volunteer run from people within the community, shared between a group of people, and running for 11 years. Now, I think that's just astounding because it's been able to actually bring so many people together. And again, that constant ability for people to dip in, dip out, recommend to other people. And so we want to be able to collect all of these different opportunities that people have and be able to key them into it. But I just thought that was an amazing initiative that had been running for so long, volunteer driven and grassroots, like you said.
Have you managed to pick up ideas from one region, offer them to another and see them take hold? Has any of that sort of cross-fertilisation happened?
And with regional coordinators, this is the beautiful part about our role. We come together. I mean, we're always meeting online and having conversations, but we're always then talking about what's happening in different regions and seeing, is that same thing coming up for you? When we hear about different initiatives, we know that it might depend on that ecosystem, what exists in the area, but how we might be able to enable that or go back to our communities and talk about, this is happening here. How do you think that might land here? Would that work for you?
And we've got a couple of ideas, but it's too early to reveal them here. But if you get us back on the radio show, we might be able to talk about
what a teaser.
That is a tease. But no, and there is obviously a big difference between the metro and the regions, do you find that there's a lot of preconceptions that need to be changed?
Oh, absolutely. I'm talking from a metro perspective. And one of the things, it's almost like a side quest, we call it in the team, which is what does it take to have a regional worker? Right. And they're all very good at making sure, and that's not just me, it's Switchboard, it's anyone, to make sure that we're not making these assumptions that we do. Right. And, Maren last week was really good and says it to all of us. Showing up is the work. And, that's absolutely true. So, all these statewide organisations, as Daniel said earlier, will only go so far, right? Well, that's not necessarily showing up and that's not necessarily doing the work.
No.
And sometimes, that simple act of going out there and actually meeting people where they are is incredibly, life-changing. But also, too, I think we're seeing a lot about language. We haven't quite unpacked that. But, here in the city, we might be having a whole lot of conversations about, how we talk about race or how we, or pronouns. And a lot of people, it's like, I just see them who they are. Don't you come out here and tell me what to do, because in some ways you're attacking their, their inclusion, right? And, but they're very inclusive, right? It's like we're doing that work, but you're coming out here and saying,
telling us that it needs to be done in this particular way.
Absolutely, right? So hopefully we can elevate that with the storytelling.
Yes.
But also too going, you're making, you're making assumptions and, about how this is.
Yes.
Let's unpack why that might be the case.
Yeah.
Right? Who's having the conversations with them to bring them up to speed or whatever, or also to bring the conversations back to go, let's not be so goddamn precious sometimes about some words, because what you're doing is, alienating people.
Yeah,
right?
You can be weaponizing
absolutely,
words.
right? And, so, I've had people come up and go, I just call them rainbow people. And I go, well, that's fine. And I think Rowena always says, we had a new letter every year just to make it difficult for us. And I can't keep up as well, so once again, though, why, we can't being so, particular and punitive to people who it's not about the intent, right? No. They are trying to get it right, but it can be like, this is so much hard work. I don't want to participate. So the city's really got to listen to what the experiences are for regional rural people.
Well, I think in England, for instance, it's the north and south, because the north feels so vilified. Then they get their backs up about London, and then you've got this, but it's really just xenophobia, isn't it? That's there for races and classes. But the more we interact, the more we know people, the less we're either going to be threatened or thinking bad things. So, it needs to go both ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. But there's a lot of learning. So it is a little bit of a side quest that we're kind of trying to document what it takes to have regional workers, place workers, successfully. Right. But so very lucky that we've got a very outspoken team of regional coordinators who, do speak up and advocate for their communities time and time again.
But isn't it good then if some of those regional workers do actually come from the big smoke? Because then you get your mind changed yourself.
And I feel like I can speak personally, having worked for Thorn Harbour as a volunteer coordinator. I have to say that's probably the best grounding I've had for this role. And, to be working and living in the regions and be able to focus in the LGBTI community is certainly a big privilege. But having that mindset from understanding, working in the city, working with volunteers, mostly all community members from the LGBTI community, but then that idea of working for Gippsland Pride and delivering training and meeting people where they're at and bringing them along with you. And I think whether that be non-LGBTI communities or LGBTI community, we're doing the same thing in the regions and bringing people along with us. And however we do that, there's no right or wrong way.
As you say, that's a side quest, but it sounds like a really, really important one.
Absolutely.
We're looking at you, Joss.
Well, okay then.
You're the woman at the controls.
I know. We've come to the end of our time because I got to choose the final song from the year of my birth, 1971, from the fabulous Daddy Cool. So we're going to go out with Eagle Rock.
Fantastic.
But before we do, tell us how people can find out more about the Pride in Ageing program.
Thank you. Probably the easiest way is to go onto the Switchboard website, switchboard.org.au/Pride in Ageing, and you'll also find information not only about the project but all the details to contact the regional coordinators in the 4 locations.
Including a photo, I believe.
Yeah,
as
well, they
nothing
were doing
scary there.
very model-like. So, and then also
AI.
Yeah. Then we also have a Facebook page that Switchboard's got theirs, but we've also got one that's just dedicated to pride and ageing and connecting older LGBTI people.
I'm getting onto it.
Yes, so please follow us there. But yeah, easy to just go onto our website. Like I said, switchboard.org.au/pride in aging.
Rowena, thank you. And thank you so much, Daniel. You're on your way to Gippsland now, aren't you?
I'll be driving out of here. Yes, exactly right. Straight
and
after.
stopping there. And thank you for being at the controls, Joss.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been fun.
See you at Gala this year.
We'll
talk about it.
It's a very expensive exercise coming from the city to be out there. For
Can you
the night.
imagine the other way around though? It's also very expensive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know. We're experiencing
Yes.
what the regional people
absolutely.
feel.
And look, if you come along, I've got a few stick tricks I'm going to do with my crutches
Wow.
for the Gippsland Pride Initiative I'm planning. So
that's going to be worth the journey, isn't it?
Sounds it.
And we'll see you next week.
Well, see us again, hopefully part 3 in a couple of months.
Yeah. Invite themselves back.
And the rest of us will be still here, still queer next week on Joy 94.9. See ya.
Thanks for listening to another Joy podcast brought to you by Australia's LGBTQIA+ community media organisation, Joy. Help keep Joy on air. Head to joy.org.au. Joy, a diverse sound for a diverse community.